Right. Now, I mentioned earlier that, well, first of all, I mentioned the fact that back in the times of Dynamation, that very many audiences thought that animation was a thing for children. That is, despite so many examples proving them wrong, it's something that some people still feel as animation is still fighting against. And I also mentioned that we were coming up to a film that was very much not for children.
Yes.
This is it. And yeah, I don't know why I stopped there. I have no idea what I was going to say. Scott, Mary and Max.
Yes, Mary and Max was, I believe, our shared favourite film, seen at the EI Edinburgh International Film Festival back in 2009. And at the risk of spoiling the result of this review, nothing has happened in intervening years to make me reconsider that opinion. Starting in 1976, a neglected and bullied 8-year-old Mary Daisy Dinkle of Victoria, Australia, starts a pen-friend relationship with a randomly selected name from a phone book, that being Max Jerry Horowitz, who has just as many problems, from his uncontrollable and unconventional eating habits to his inability to connect with and understand people, which, as it turns out, is due to his later diagnosed Asperger's syndrome. This film follows their ongoing correspondence and the anxiety attacks that they provoke in Max over the course of Mary's childhood and early adulthood. Both of their lives are eventful in a quiet, realistic and slightly depressing sense, and makes for a very human, identifiable and sympathetic narrative. Even in an episode where nearly everything we're speaking of is quite densely packed with gags, this stands out as being extremely densely packed with gags, both visual and auditory. It's an exceedingly sharply scripted script with terrific deliveries from Philip Seymour Hoffman and Barry Humphries in particular. And this is perhaps an odd thing to say about a film that deals so heavily with neglect, addiction, loneliness, anxiety and suicide, but that's really the film's genius. As you mentioned, Drew, I don't think we really need to re-legislate the animation can be adults and deal with adult films discussion again, but if anyone was wavering on the point, I would direct them to Mary and Max, which deals with said themes sensitively and highly entertainingly. In an episode full of films I enjoyed immensely, I enjoyed this immensely-er. If you haven't seen it, you really ought to. And I suspect a lot of people haven't. This was not a huge success by any stretch of the word, but it's just incredible. I watched it again and I was blown away by how densely packed this script is. It's an absolute marvel. And the animation, of course, and all that stuff. It goes to said, if you've made it into this episode, the technical side of things is beyond reproach. And it looks absolutely great here. It's some really funny visuals, some really incredibly scripted performances, great gags. It's very funny. And as I say, it's dealing with the most adult content you can imagine. I've only mentioned about half of the themes that it brings up during the course of its work, but it does so in just such a relatable and human fashion, and is managing to deal with all of that very sensitively and really entertainingly, humanistically, sensitively. Just a really wonderful film. I enjoyed this an awful lot. I was so glad to come back to this again. Just a great film, and 2009's film of the year, most probably. I can't remember if I said anything was better than that, but yes, it's just a great film, and if you've not seen it already, definitely get on to that.
Yeah, I made it clear before that I'm not, in general, a big fan of narration in films. I sometimes feel that it's lazy.
Yeah.
In this film, absolutely not. This is very much one of the exceptions, because the narration works, because I think Barry Humphries' delivery of it is particularly good, but because of the way it's written. Because it's written like a children's story.
Yes.
And that is genius.
Yeah.
Of if you're an adult, obviously you're understanding what it means, but it's funny and kind of clever, and it's like how a child might misunderstand things and maybe not understand what the word was that was said.
Yeah.
And then send their imagination down a completely different path, leading to confusion and humour. And it's so good. It's so beautiful, despite being 50% brown and 50% grey. It's such a vibrant and beautiful film. I mentioned in my introduction that one of the appeals of stop motion animation can very often be just that general appeal of big things in miniature.
Yeah.
And something like, say, Peter and the Wolf is very much just it's a really detailed miniature of a thing. Not 100%, but going quite close to being very, very like the real thing.
Yeah.
Whereas Mary and Max is kind of like the caricature version of miniatures. of a thing in miniature. And it's got the most wonderful backdrop, like the mailbox looking like a koala that has been surprised from behind. And then our little shrinkies are little things of jewellery she makes from crisp packets and stuff. It's just, there was so much heart in this film. And it's actually, in a number of ways, it's making me think of the film we're going to finish with, but it deals with some really serious issues in a very calm and gentle way.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, just the way to do it a lot of the time. And I miss Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every time I watch this, I think that, 'cause I've watched this numerous times since we saw it, 'cause I love this film. It's just, it's so wonderful. It's got so much heart in it. And I don't mind admitting that the end of it makes me cry every time.
Yeah.
Just that scene in the apartment, it's like, oh, yeah. It's just so good. And it's one of those films that you just want to cry because not enough people have seen it.
Yeah.
It really deserves to be seen by so many more people because it's so good. I mean, if you want to take any one film away from this podcast episode you should watch, it's all of them.
But particularly this one, yeah.
But particularly this one, yes. All of these are equal, but some of them are more equal than others. But no, really, all of them. And this one twice, that will do it.
Yeah.